I want to do a quick commercial. I know we've already talked about the 14th year anniversary. That'll be next week. We'll be upstairs. We'll have hot dogs and potato chips and cake. Kate, we're going to have cake and ice cream and games and all kinds of stuff. Just a little bit of celebration for next week. All right? And we'll start setting up at 6 o'clock, and that'll all be upstairs. Any questions on that? Okay, all right. It'll be good cake. We're on step 4, and I wanted to touch some things on step 4. As I was preparing and studying step 4, step 4, I know we've already read it several times, but since we're on YouTube and Facebook right at the moment, I want to go ahead and read that for them. And that is step 4, we make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And searching is we're looking at things, but most of our lives has been focused about not looking. Have you noticed that? Right? I don't want to look. I don't want to see. That's called denial. Anybody here know anything about denial? Okay. And the trouble is we do a searching and fearless. Fearless means the reason why we choose not to look is because we're fearful instead of fearless. Would you agree with that? We're scared. We don't want to deal with it. Our human makeup is to avoid pain and seek pleasure. Right? Avoid pain and seek pleasure. But this word moral, I was stuck on that, and so I did some reading in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, going through a lot of the definitions, and I got down to where it used this. Moral is the significance of a story or event. You know, the moral of the story is, right? The moral of the story is, so what if, now see, oftentimes we think of step 4 and we look at it as bad, but if we could back up and look at our life as the story and see what the story is telling us, right? If you like the story, if you don't like the story, the moral of the story. What do you think about that thought? The moral of the story. So what was going on? Now, when I'm saying the moral of the story is we're not really judging whether it's good or bad. We're just trying to find the meaning of it, right? So, shall I say that again? Not looking to try to judge it or find the good or the bad. We're looking to find out the meaning. Like, oftentimes we ask the question, well, how did I end up here? How did I get to be this way? Why do I keep doing this same thing over and over? Anybody said that? Yeah. The rest of you are liars. And so, but if we refuse to look, then we can never know. Does that make sense? That's right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Just because we refuse to look at it doesn't change the story. It just means we are now victims of our story because our story runs over us. What you can't see can hurt you. If I put all my bills into the drawer and say, well, I don't see them, so they don't count, that doesn't work out very well. How did that work for you? Yeah, okay. And so I'm just proposing to you, all right, to be willing to look at your story. Not judge yourself, but to look at it. Now, we already know, I mean, nobody has to tell you what was good or bad. You knew that a long time, when you were doing it, you knew it was the way, right? Nobody, I don't have to tell you what not to do. You knew that a long time ago, right? So I'm not here, but the question that you have to ask yourself, is it in your best interest to continue to live in that manner? Well, of course, that's pretty easy because you say, well, no, that's not, but I keep doing it anyway. That's some of the moral problem, or not moral, human problem that we're caught in, because the fact of it is, and as I was reading through the step and reading through the information and going through the scripture references that they gave, the issue here is that it's not about what we've done, but it's why I've done it. Have I got your interest? And if we look at that, if we look at the why, and as Dr. I can't think of his name right now, Mate, that's it. Dr. Mate says it's not the addiction, it's the pain. The issues, the problems, the abuse, the pain, the offense, the situations that were, do what? Pressures, all those things. And then I like one of the things, and we didn't get into it in the profiles as we were reading some of it, but that at least I don't remember. And that is we decided to use something to help us other than that higher power or God. We chose to use something like drugs, alcohol, sex, anger, gambling, rage. You fill in the blank. You know what I'm talking about? And the reason why we did that was because we trying to avoid the pain, right? Is that not true? And the fact of it is, using those alternative substances or behaviors, did you avoid the pain? Well, it may have eased it a bit, right? But then how did that work out for you? And the rest of the story is that we used those mechanisms or behaviors or substances to try to ease the pain. But the fact of it is, all that did was cover up the stuff. Would you agree with that? Is that too much? We covered it up. And then all that did was stuff just festered in our life. It got worse. Isn't that true? Okay. So the step forward that we were talking about here is this moral, all right? And I'm not saying that you have to look at it this way, but think about it maybe as a way of, hey, the moral of the story. What does when I look at my life inventory, and we can't adjust or fix or deal with or affect anything that we aren't willing to recognize, right? If you choose not to see it, then you're not able to deal with it, because then it deals with you, right? Like Miracle says, it'll run over you. So anyway, that was what I wanted to say about step 4. And I don't know what time I started, but I get till 7:50. Oh, okay. All right, 7:50. All right. Well, I want to in this, step 4 is so important because actually it's about one of our topics that we're talking about, guilt and shame, and also reality. Okay? And basically I want to kind of shift into reality. And this is a quote from Seneca. He's a philosopher, Stoic philosopher. He says, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." What do you think about that? We suffer more in imagination than in reality.
Well, like I told a person before, they said, "You're really going to talk about that?" And I said, "Look, you know, if I just leave it and they know just a little bit, people can take that a long way with because the story just gets worse. But when I tell my own story, it doesn't, it stays with how it is usually. And, you know, and I think it's really important too, like Rick said, you have to look at the good too, as long as the bad, because we seem to focus on the bad so much.
Yes.
But there is good there.
Yes. And that's because we're afraid of the bad, and we're not. And well, I like what Dr. Jordan Peterson says. There is more to you than what faces you or what you're afraid of. There's more to you than what's going on here. There's more to you. There's a lot to you. And there's a lot more to you than what you're afraid of, too. Does that make sense? And,
I think when you face, like with mine, with the anger, when you face that anger, then you can let the joy
yes.
out. Instead, it just uncovers because it isn't that. You know what I mean?
And I think I read this to the leadership group Monday night, and this is from another philosopher, 50 Cent. 50 Cent says, reality has its own power. You can't turn your back on it, but it will find you in the end. You can turn your back on it, but it will find you in the end, and your inability to cope with it will be your ruin. I thought that's pretty powerful from 50 Cent. Kate likes 50 Cent.
Yep.
And so anyway, reality is something, again, when we choose to deny or refuse to look, when we use anger to push things back. This is for you, Paul. Because I remember one time I was, and I don't even remember the entire, because he's always wanting me to tell stories about me, so here's a story about me. So I was at the college, this has been many, many years ago, and as I grew up, it was always trying to protect myself from being embarrassed. You know what I'm talking about? Probably nobody here has ever been that way, but it was, always trying to protect not get in a situation